All right. G'day, g'day. Welcome back to Collectivitis, the podcast where we dissect the disease that is collectivism. My name's Pietro. This is Floyd. How you doing, Floyd?
I'm okay, except for this fucking wind. That is just I just need it to stop already.
I've I've just noticed your name is this fucking
Yeah,
wind. Well,
yeah.
is it real windy where you are? It's I mean it's okay here. It's not too bad, but
I think it's just the persistence of the wind. Like I was out yesterday, I got dirt in my eyes, and it was just I just want it to stop already. I mean, wind's okay, when you've got washing, which is good for that. But yeah, no, just stop already.
is wind caused by climate change? Is that one of their um
I reckon after the last few days, it has been.
yeah,
Sure, we'll see
well,
something about it.
Well, it's actually like it's the perfect cycle because if climate change causes wind and then wind spin those big turbines that give us
Mhm.
renewable energy, and that so climate change is actually fixing climate change when you look at it that way.
Yeah,
This is
yeah,
perfect. I'm gonna go
yeah.
burn some more tires in my backyard just for that. And I'm
Problem
helping, and I'm
reaction
actually
solution.
helping. Yeah.
Yeah,
I usually burn a few just to, do my bit,
yeah.
but now I'm actually an
Well,
environmentalist when I burn them.
um, the gods of climate change need you to burn tires.
Okay,
I
perfect.
think that's in the climate change Bible.
Sweet. Yeah, I'll make a little altar.
Yeah.
Out of burnt tires, out of the melted pieces of. Anyway, uh, we're a political podcast. um, we there's I mean look there's a fair bit to talk about always nowadays, and we kind of pick and choose a little bit of what to talk about, but we haven't really done a dive into Kamala Harris. Do you know how it's meant to be said? What's the offensive way of saying it?
Potato, potato when it comes to this, but I think it's meant to be Kamala.
Okay, Kamala. That's how I've been saying
That's
it.
Yeah, that's how I think that's how the legacy media will say it is Kamala.
Okay.
And then you've
Well,
got like the rednecks, Kamala. I don't know. Let's go with that.
yeah, okay. Well, I want to say it the way that is offensive. Like I don't want to
Okay.
say her name. So Kamala. I'm gonna call her Kamala
Kamala.
Harris
Yeah,
now.
Kamala.
Perfect. It's gonna be hard because my ingrained in my brain already is the correct way to say it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway, she's a piece of shit. So we haven't spoken about her.
Mm.
And I thought we should. But also like not just the fact that she's a piece of shit because it's easy to say stuff like that. It's easy to say things like Joe Biden's retarded. He won the last election, right? So like these people are still genuine threats, and we've got to have a look at the situation on the whole, I suppose. And I think surprising, and this I've found this surprising, is the way that they have managed to uh, rejuvenate the figure that is Kamala Harris. Um, from someone who was completely useless at their last primaries, the ones in 2020 where Joe Biden won. She dropped out before the first primaries. She was utterly humiliated by Tulsi Gabbard, who is one of the few really good Democrats. And she's not a Democrat anymore, obviously, because the good Democrats can't uh, survive in the Democratic Party. And she was very much like the diversity hire pick as vice president for Joe Biden. She was, I think we spoke last time when she was first elected to Senate. She was the first Indian senator, and now she's the first black vice president. So I mean, she'll tick whatever box you wanted to tick as long as she gets to have a scrap of power. And now she could also tick the first woman president, which
Yep.
is another perfect for the Democrats. Um, but she was, yeah, remarkably unimpressive, and only chosen because she was, ticked those boxes. And yet now, since Joe Biden dropped out of the race, very controversially, let's say, there's a lot of noise about whether he was strong-armed into doing that, and it certainly seems that way, considering that up until just days before he withdrew, he was saying, "I'm not withdrawing, I'm running." Um, but now she's the second coming of Jesus Christ. She's the greatest thing that's ever existed. She is uh powerful, and she represents change and hope and joy, and it's just such a joyful campaign. And I wanted to look at that a little bit and what it kind of means. So I suppose I'll let you have a crack at it. What do you think of this whole Kamala Harris?
Yeah. I might just call her Cams or Cams or something like that. But she's been vice
Hasdob.
president. Yeah, has her.
Hazard. There we go.
Hara, I don't know who the. Yeah, we got to Australianize her to make her more like impressionable and like more relatable for
Yeah.
Australians. So we're doing that. That's our I don't know, some word for that. But yeah, she's been vice president for what 3.5 years, and it's just like we're going to make change. We're going to do something better, and it's like, well, why haven't you done it already? Where you just did Biden kind of like suppress you? So I think that's like the goldfish attention span of people, and not even realizing, wait, she's been the vice president, and why is she promising to do something new when she could just do it now? That's probably the big thing. But yeah, I have loved watching this just for the one up of Trump and Cam's just doing both. Yeah, it's just fascinating to watch. I love it as an Australian.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's like yeah, so she's obviously it's almost like there's this she's caught between a rock and a hard place because she has to simultaneously say that the economy was great under Biden because that's part of her legacy, right? She was part of the Biden administration. It was Biden Harris, and she was in charge of whatever half the country or whatever proportion you would consider the vice president to be in charge of during that economy, and she has to be great on that. But also, everyone knows the economy is shit. So she also has to say that I'm going to be the one to fix the economy, even though
Yep.
I could literally do that right now while Biden is still president. By the way, isn't that funny that Biden is still president and like it's just like there isn't a president. Like it's almost
Yep.
like we're in limbo. They're in limbo, and everyone's pretending that there's not a decrepit old man who wasn't allowed to run in charge of the country and with
Well,
the nuclear codes for the next 6 months.
that's okay. That's okay because it's actually a Politburo over there. So I think that's what it really shows.
But the other thing is like she's caught between this rock and this hard place in that she has to somehow navigate both. And yet all of the forces of the media and the bureaucracy and the government are not questioning that. They're all pushing her completely unilaterally, like just saying, yeah, no, she's hope. She's going to change things. She's going to fix things, like ignoring the hypocrisy of it all. And so I think, and I mean, this is not an original thought of mine. I've heard lots of people say this, but she is, I mean, she's unimpressive as a person. And I'm not saying that just to sling mud at the Democrats, because there are, and there have been impressive Democrats. In fact, I would say RFK, when he tried to run for the Democrats, was an impressive Democrat. I disagreed with him on a bunch of things, but he was impressive. Obama was impressive. I'm sure there are others that I'm not thinking of.
But Obama was just impressive because he was a good speaker. He hadn't really done much in the party, whereas Hillary Clinton, I mean, I think she's impressive in the sense of I've done stuff. And I think, yeah, with Kamala, she hasn't really done anything except be the diverse vice president that no one knew about and
But
still
I don't
probably don't know about.
Yeah, but I don't even mean in terms of like what they've done or what they haven't done. I mean
Okay.
impressive, like appears impressive, like can
Oh, okay.
talk,
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
share a message, can inspire hope. Because at the end of the day, like the president's job or the campaign, the campaigner's job
Yeah.
is to be able to essentially advocate for their side of politics in the best way speaking wise, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they want their party to be in charge. And I mean, more so now than ever before, because historically, yeah, the president had more of a say. Nowadays, I think if you look at the fact of how completely hamstrung Trump's 4 years were by the deep state and how completely obvious it is that Biden is not in charge of the country now, it's clear that the president doesn't even run things. So it's just you're on a speaking tour to show that your
Mm.
party or your viewpoint or your people should be in charge of things. And in that sense, she's not impressive.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's far from the most impressive that the Democrats have, or at least, I mean, the eligible ones. Obama can't serve a third term, and they made sure that RFK couldn't run. Um, but and we see that because like when she was vice president, all those interviews that she did where, do you think you fell out of a coconut tree on all that shit? Like she has massive sort of foot and mouth syndrome where she can't say 10 words without saying something stupid or reductive or like talking to her audience like their children. She seems really struggle at that. And so there's no substance behind her. And the point that I was getting at is that this entire campaign is basically a push to see if the establishment and the Democratic Party and the deep state can win an election on just nothing but propaganda. Like there is no substance behind it at all. There's no other message. There's nothing. There is just propaganda. Because at least with Biden in 2020 or whatever it was, uh, Biden was supposed to represent a return to normalcy, right? Because the Trump 4 years had been chaos and the Russiagate propaganda, Russiagate thing, and which ended up being a hoax, and the he's a racist, neo-Nazi, etc., etc. And then there was COVID, and like, well, wouldn't you rather just go back to normalcy? Remember Obama? Remember how good it was under Obama? Well, this is Obama's vice president, so like, just elect him, and we get to go back to normalcy. There was at least that message. It wasn't
Yeah.
just um,
Mm.
like, hey, we're going to lie to you every day and hope that we win anyway.
Mm.
Whereas that is literally what this is now. Like, Biden's been shit. Uh, Harris is shit. She's an awful candidate. Her views are awful. They're more progressive and to the left than even Biden's were. What little views she has. Her website still has no policies on it to speak of. So they're running on no policies, no interviews, just broad, hey, we're going to push this person and tell you that she's a superstar and hope that all of that noise is enough to turn the country into voting for her. And so I think it's a very wild experiment that they're doing right now. And if the polls are to be believed, like, it's working. But she's now, if not leading, I think the polls are about neck and neck. Like, I think it is very close. It's very tight. But considering she was the most unpopular vice president in like forever when she was vice president, and she was one of the most unpopular candidates in the primaries, and there was never an election to actually make her the candidate, because remember, Biden had been chosen as the candidate and he stepped down and she's just been put in his place. So there's nothing democratic about it at all, and there's nothing impressive about her. And so it is just a case of, can the media and the apparatus make enough noise to win an election with nothing behind it?
Yeah, it's all about the propaganda machine, and I think there's a highlight of how big the propaganda machine can be, and really just turn someone from something. I mean, it's from nothing to something, and turn someone from something to nothing as well. And yeah, you get the machine behind you, and look how well it works. But what I thought is, when you're talking about empty promises and not really talking about anything and how much you can put out, just to make yourself look good, and not really putting any substance behind it, maybe they've taken a cue from Liberal and Labor.
Yeah, they're watching our politics and they thought,
Yeah,
holy shit, that is so vacuous and stupid. That's
yeah, that
great.
works.
Let's put that into our lead candidate, into our presidential candidate. And I mean, look, it may well work. That's the thing. And all of this is to say, I don't actually. I think Trump is less impressive the more this election cycle goes on. I don't know what you think about him. I liked Trump the most when there was all the kind of lawfare being used against him, and he had his back against the wall, and so he was being that more sort of controversial in a sense, but more destructive of the system. Like, he'd say, "Hey, they're using all these laws against me. This is wrong. This is unfair. We need to tear this down. We need to dismantle these powers. That's all completely corrupt and rah 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 rah." Whereas now, and he was also speaking much better on the Ukraine Russia thing. He was saying that he just wanted people to stop dying, and that it seemed like his policy was going to be one of not funding Ukraine and not continuing that war. And instead, he's kind of stopped talking about that. And I mean, Trump basically takes all sides of every argument, which is the one of the problems with him. So he's not clear on that. And I mean, the most, I guess, worrying thing was that I thought, and I remember we were talking about it when he was shot, We thought, oh, the Trump response to that. He gets up, fight, 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 right? We're like, here we go. The Trump response is going to be, hey, fuck you all. You tried to shoot me and you missed. And now I'm going to destroy every one of you. You're all pieces of shit. I'm Trump. I'm the best, blah, blah, blah. But instead, he has not taken that angle at all. He's since then been a much more subdued figure, which is understandable to an extent. I mean, he almost died. I'm not saying that, I'm not necessarily blaming him for this. Uh, but he's taken a much less hardline stance against the establishment and the state because I think he's realized, like, I mean, they tried to kill me. And I know the lone gunman, again, obviously it's a lone gunman, right? Because it's always a lone gunman. But
Yeah, with a magic bullet.
yeah, but in this particular situation, there was certainly gaps in his security from the Secret Service. And again, when we spoke on it on the day, we didn't know any of these details. We were speaking on it like, an hour or two. But there's been lots of deep dives into the fact that it wasn't like, the fact that they didn't clear that roof, and that roof was only 100 meters away, and they didn't clear it because it was a sloped roof, and they didn't want to put any agents on it because they might slip on the sloped roof where a guy was allowed to line up a gun and shoot at the president. Like, there were outrageous security shortfalls, and since then the head of the Secret Service, I think she was grilled in Parliament, in Congress or wherever it was, and she's since resigned. And so there were all of these shortfalls where clearly there were either intentional mistakes or massive, massive coincidences that allowed someone to take a shot at Trump. But he hasn't called out any of that. He has gone. He did an interview where he said how great the Secret Service was, which, and I mean, there is certainly courage there. The ones that jump around him and dive and protect him with their bodies to stop any further bullets. But there was also enormous mistakes that allowed something that should never have been allowed to happen. So, and he didn't take a hardline stance on that. So he does seem like he's kind of genuinely worried about how powerful the establishment is. And I don't think he has any intention of tearing it down the way that seemed he might do at the beginning of this campaign, when he was railing against, when he was still fighting off genuine contenders like DeSantis and whatnot, who had just some genuine momentum. Whereas now it looks like he's in a like a conserve the vote he has mode and hope that he wins. Like, he's not trying to shake the situation up because doesn't think he needs to. He's not worried about, he's worried about his life. I don't know, but I think I'm not particularly excited about Trump this time around.
Okay. Yeah, I think he's just become a bit more of a politician. I don't know whether his advisors or his PR team have said, well, you need to seem a bit more professional to appeal to whatever demographic. But yeah, he seems to have just slipped into that role. This is how, almost like this is how a president should act, as opposed to this is how I was elected, and this is how I gained all these people getting behind me. Or maybe he's just realized, hey, these people are behind me, like, through thick and thin, and they'll support me through whatever. So now it's time to appeal to that crowd that might actually give me their vote, as opposed to Cams or Miles or whatever we're calling her.
Hasdog to Hasdog.
Hasdog. That's right.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was always the appeal of Trump, was that he wasn't a politician. Like, so him being a politician, he's not. There's a clear disconnect between him and what his base is, I think. And this is something that I've always thought. Not always. I've thought this sort of the last 2, 3 years, is that Trump doesn't deserve, or never deserved, the base that he inherited. Like, if Trump was what Trump's supporters think he is, he would be awesome. He would be much better, because that whole movement has come out of, like, this populist America first, stop foreign wars, sound money kind of, somewhere between, like, a sort of, a redneck-ish Republican country / a little bit of libertarian mixed in there view of how America should be. But Trump isn't that at all. And Trump has maybe he just appeals to that, and part of it is because he's just different to the system, and part of it is because the system don't want him so clearly that people attach these hopes to him. But he's not
Yeah,
that
yeah,
good.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
he'll keep funding Israel to carpet bomb Gaza and kill, thousands of innocents. He'll keep funding Ukraine to push for a nuclear war, I would imagine. Um, he'll keep expanding the state. There was the same amount of increase in public spending under him even prior to 2021 as there was
Mm.
to any other president before him. He is more of the same.
Yeah,
And he doesn't deserve the movement that he's inherited, which is a movement, I think, which is a groundswell of people who are unhappy with the swamp, like his
yeah, yeah, yeah.
definition of the swamp.
Yeah, almost like the facade has faded off, and it's like it almost seems like he's just in it to win it, and I think that's what everyone's always kind of said, apart from the people who are like lifting him up as like the messiah of America.
Yeah, well, that's right. He's in it to win it, and his supporters think that he's not. He's in it to change the world and
Yeah.
to fix lives. Um, one other thing, and I suppose it's good to bring it up now that I wanted to
Mm,
talk about, and we've already mentioned Tulsi Gabbard, who was
mm.
the Democrat. She was the Democrat who was famously endorsed by Ron Paul the last time around because she is
I didn't
she's
know
a
that.
yeah, well, I don't know if he like wholeheartedly endorsed her, but he endorsed her on her views because she's a veteran and she
Mm.
is very anti-war and she's very anti the machine of war and the
Yeah,
military-industrial complex and all of that, and she was very good on that. I'm not sure. I actually don't know whether Ron Paul endorsed her wholeheartedly, like everything
he just
about
put
her,
he
or
put in
just
put in a good word for her, essentially.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
she was the one that he said had a lot of good things to say about. And so Tulsi Gabbard and RFK
Mm.
have both in the last few days uh, come out and endorsed Donald Trump, and that's very interesting from RFK because RFK and Donald Trump are not similar in many ways. In fact, they were essentially running against each other just weeks ago with on a whole number of issues. But the thing that brings them together more than anything else, and the reason that RFK has jumped ship, is because the Democrats have cheated him out of this election, and the lawfare used against him has
Mm.
cheated him out of this election at every turn. They changed the rules for how you could be a Democratic candidate for the primaries so that RFK wouldn't be in it because RFK was a genuine threat of beating Biden and being the candidate, and he is so against the system. And obviously, RFK, the best thing about RFK is that he's totally against Big Pharma and he's totally against everything that happened in COVID. And he wrote the book on Anthony Fauci, who is still heralded as the savior and Dr. Truth Science. And he is so against like the CIA and all those deeply entrenched bureaucratic state power centers. And that's he's completely unallowable. Like he would be more impermissible than Trump, I think, because he would actually know what some of the good things to cut are. And he was awesome he is awesome on the Russia-Ukraine thing. He's certainly more clear-sighted on that. He's far more intelligent than Trump. He is still shit on the Israel-Gaza thing. And it was interesting to hear him debate Dave Smith on that on part of the problem podcast. But what brings them together more than anything is the fact that the Democrats are cheats and liars and corrupt to the core and will destroy the world if they are not stopped or veered away. And that's enough to bring the unlikely camps of RFK and Tulsi Gabbard and Trump together all under one banner. So I thought that was interesting. What did you think of that situation?
Yeah, I like to see, or more so, yeah, it's interesting to see the different people come together and the people you wouldn't really expect. I liked RFK, and I was backing him for president, really, and people were kind of like, oh, why? They were kind of a bit stringent on me for that, but fuck it, he's a good dude. Not that I know him or anything, but yeah, I think that you're seeing the issues that are with the Democrats, that are with Hasdog, and people just saying, well, wait a second, we can't have her and her crew, her Politburo in here because it's gonna make America worse as opposed to make America great again. So yeah, I think you're just seeing the reaction that people are having and what they're looking at as to be the real problems with it, and saying no, even if it is Trump, almost like the lesser of two evils argument, even though they might not fully agree with what he's saying, well, at least he's better, and it's going to be at least a better place with him in.
Yeah, and there is part of it, I think, which is undeniable, that RFK is doing this as a nuke the Democratic Party revenge move, because it's like, well, they have fucked me over so hard here. They are such unbelievably corrupt pieces of shit. And anything I can do now to make them lose, I will do, because they made it so difficult for them to achieve ballot access on all 50 states, and you can't win unless you have ballot access on all 50 states. They bogged them down in like minor lawsuit after minor lawsuit after minor lawsuits. It's cost them millions of dollars. It takes all of their time from campaigning and from doing the other things. Like, they are genuinely whipping out every lawfare available to them in the books to try and derail his campaign, which is completely dishonest. They've banned any talk of him from any of the media. The media completely ignores him as if he doesn't exist. He wouldn't exist if it weren't for the fact that he goes on podcasts and the new media, which is the only hope to break down the monopoly that they have on all of this. So there is a part of it that is like, well, you know what? You are such unbelievable pieces of shit. I'm going to go with Trump, who I hate, and just to beat you. And I think this is the Nicole Shanahan, which was his vice president, who sort of she teased the fact that they were probably going to endorse Trump a few days before they officially did it. And she is far less measured in the interviews that she gives than RFK, RFK, who can tell how measured he is, really. He talks like this. So, whereas she was,
yes, I was actually meaning to be sarcastic, but you didn't pick it up.
Well, when you said you love listening to him or something.
Yeah, RFK being sarcastic.
Oh, right,
because of his voice, you can't tell, or it's just like it just kind of comes off as this one note, and that's what makes him seem like really smart and everything. Who knows?
That's right. You can't tell if he's angry. You can't tell if he's happy. You can't tell if he's sad. All you can tell is that his voice is croaky. But Nicole Shanahan, you can definitely tell she is fuming. Like, she wants the Democratic Party to burn, and she was like, so there is an aspect of this which is also just kind of revenge. And I remember I think it was 2012, when Ron Paul had a huge movement behind him and had a genuine shot at actually getting the Republican nomination. And he was persona non grata. Like, he was the equivalent of Trump in 2016, where the Republican establishment was like, no, absolutely not. We are going to cheat and lie and steal and do anything to not let him be the candidate. And I remember there were a bunch of people who were saying at the end of it, when when they didn't give him when they cheated him out of the nomination, the same way they've cheated Bernie Sanders, for example, the same way they've now cheated RFK, the same way they both parties, I'm saying, do this to get their establishment candidate in, the way they couldn't cheat Donald Trump out of it in 2016. But people were saying, well, what Ron Paul should do is run as an independent and take all the massive base that he has built, which is taking votes only or almost exclusively from the Republican Party, make them lose this election as a kind of fuck you, cheat again. Like, let's sit now. That's what you get for cheating. I will ruin your chances. And people saying that he should have done that, but he didn't. He didn't run as an independent, and a lot of that was probably also to spare the career of Rand Paul, who was still a Republican, was much more mainstream. And so, and I don't know. I also don't know if Ron Paul has always run a very puritanical kind of campaign and led a pretty puritanical kind of life. He doesn't lie and cheat and steal and play the games of politics. He has gotten where he's gotten by telling the truth and being honest. So I don't know if he'd have the political nerve to do something so ugly, I guess. But it does seem that is what the equivalent of what RFK and his VP and Tulsi Gabbard now are doing, try and get Trump over the line. But
Well,
again,
and supposedly more people will be coming. So keep your eyes peeled for what happens next.
where do you know of other people who are rumored to be coming?
Well, no, supposedly that's what they've said is there's going to be more people. This was
Yeah,
before Tulsi Gabbard came. I don't know if they were just talking about Tulsi, but more people as opposed to like another person. I don't know. They could just be propping it up to make themselves seem bigger. I mean, that's what you do in politics. So
yeah, no way they lie. What the fuck? I
yeah,
had no idea. They lie
shit.
about this stuff? No way. Um, the other thing which I thought was interesting is well, because RFK is so good on the Ukraine-Russia thing, the fact that he is now like he's almost a running mate to Trump now because
Hmm.
his endorsement obviously is so powerful, and I think the implication is that Trump will now put him in some sort of position should he get elected.
Yeah.
I think I think someone said that he could put him as the head of the CIA because he doesn't need congressional approval for that. I don't know the minutiae. I
Yeah.
think I
Yeah.
heard this,
Okay.
which would mean that RFK in charge of the CIA that killed his father and uncle, you
Yeah.
know, as far as he believes and as far as a lot of people believe, would be very interesting and like releasing the Kennedy files after what is it, a squillion years, 50, 60 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it? No, it's not quite. It's like
I
30.
think it would be nearly 60.
I think it was 68, wasn't it? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Nah, so it wouldn't be 60 years.
I said
That's
nearly
outrageous.
60, just
50.
for the
Yeah, no,
record.
okay, yeah, no, actually, yeah, nearly 50. My maths is shining in
I'm
absolute
looking up the date
right
now.
now. Yeah. But yeah, that would be wild. So the fact that RFK is I'll just finish my point. You
Oh
look up
my
the date.
God, November 22, 1963.
63.
63, yeah.
Maybe the other Kennedy died in 68. Maybe that's what I'm confusing. The
Okay, yeah, yeah.
RFK's dad.
We'll
Not
just have the long
JFK.
list of the Kennedys that have been assassinated.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's one every other year, so you can
Yeah.
probably. That's right. It is 63 because it's shortly after the Cuban Missile Crisis. Um, the but the point I was making was that RFK being essentially a running mate to Trump now is could like make Trump a lot better on the Ukraine Russia thing. And I think
Yep.
that is probably the scariest of all the things happening in the world right now. As much as the Israel Gaza thing is horrific, it might lead to a war in Iran or something like that. It might extend to further wars. The most imminent thing is the fact that like the biggest nuclear arsenal in the world is not actually the US, it's Russia. And we are doing everything to push them to the absolute brink
Yeah.
and funding Ukraine to the teeth. Another equally corrupt, if not more corrupt country, which now we have to save and killing all the people in there. And to try and push Russia to the brink and flirting with the idea of World War III. That's the most dangerous of all the things that I think government is doing right now. And I think an RFK is good on that. So maybe RFK being on Trump's squad could make Trump good on that. That would be the best thing to come out of this, I think. Well, and I mean, look, as we said, there's lots that we do like about RFK. If if the good things about RFK manage to make their way into the Trump campaign and not the bad things about RFK, that would be
Mm,
great. But I mean,
yeah.
I'm not resting.
Trump will put him in charge of Israel Palestine instead.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what he'll put him in charge of, and it'll be
Yeah.
just the worst of the worst. Yeah, that's actually what'll end up happening. That's funny. Um, yeah. So what did we land on? How many years was it? My math is
So 61. Oh no, yeah, no,
60.
nearly 61. November 22nd,
So yeah, you were
1963.
bang on when you said 60, and I said that's nowhere
I
near.
said, I said nearly 60. I'm not going to try and claim that I got it right. Nearly 60.
Okay. Well, anyway, maths aside,
Yep.
uh, math. The next thing we're going to I wanted to talk about briefly, which, is the fact that the U.S. Jerome Powell, the head of the Federal Reserve in the U.S., has indicated that they are going to drop interest rates. Now this is economics, but it's almost entirely correlated to politics as well, because they're obviously trying to drop interest rates, um, to favor the current government, to give the Democrats a better chance here, because the Democrats are better at expanding and spending and all the things that the Federal Reserve helps them to do, and the Federal Reserve is unabashedly assisting that at the moment. But I was just reading an article on ABC here in Australia, which suggests that it's almost certain that because if the US cuts interest rates, Australia will also cut interest rates. And we do tend to follow the US in most policy, especially economic policy stuff. But what's interesting about this is the fact that it is essentially our government, the US government, and probably a lot of the rest of the world is giving up the fight against inflation. Because as we know, as good libertarians, we know that inflation is not caused by corporate greed or a war in Russia or by a blocking of the supply trade routes and shit like that. We know that inflation is caused by an inflation of the money supply by government who controls the money supply in tandem with reserve banks, with central banks of their own country, in our case, the RBA. And when they cause this inflation, and everyone suffers, and it becomes politically unviable to keep the inflation that high, the only tool they have to curb inflation is to raise interest rates. And what that does is that every person who has any debt of any sort, which is just about everyone in the country, feels the pinch of having to pay more of that debt back, which removes money from our pockets, and people tend to spend less because they have to spend more on paying back their debts, their home loans, car loans, whatever it may be. And in doing so, it removes money from the economy, not from the hands of the rich and powerful, but from the hands of everyday people, which brings down prices, which is, when you look at it that way, it's a really, I know it gets called a blunt instrument all the time. It's the bluntest of instruments. It's the government printed too much money to help its special interest groups. And to fix that, we're going to make every one of the people poorer on top of the taxes that we already make them pay, so that you guys can bring inflation down. So you guys can suffer for the free spending that we did to cause this pain. And even in doing that, the interest rates, they're now giving up on that. They're now lowering interest rates, probably in preparation for the US election and the Australian election, which is likely to be in mid next year, I think is the likelihood of it now, to make it more politically viable for the big government parties to win again. So we lost the fight against inflation. There will be more inflation. You heard it here first. I will stake my reputation on the fact that, yes, the battle against inflation has been lost. The government has surrendered. They'll tell you that we won. They'll tell you that it's over, but you will still be paying a lot more for everything that you'd like to buy than you were 10 years ago.
No, don't worry about that, because you're going to get rent caps. You're going to get your price caps on your groceries, so it'll be fine.
The Greens will save the world. You're right. And if that's not cause for celebration, if that's not cause for burning a couple of tires just as soon as we get off this call, then I don't know what is.
I don't think there's going to be tires. I think there's going to be a huge supply-demand issue with that. I think we're going to have to go to burn something else, because the tires are going to be too expensive at this rate.
What's something like more polluting and cheaper that we could burn? Plastic? Plastic would be pretty good to burn.
Leave it in the comments. What's something we can burn?
That's a great, yes. Let's unite our powers and think what's something that we could burn that would cause lots of pollution. Because remember, the pollution causes climate change, which causes this fucking wind, as Floyd is named,
and this economy,
which then spins the big renewable energy things. The what are they called? The windmills, turbines. That's it. Which then gives us free energy and free power and keeps the lights on.
And the wind turbines blows the clouds away, which give us the solar power.
There you go. So I'm starting a new party. We are burning tires or whatever other cheap product that you guys can suggest to us.
It's a bit of a mouthful right there. but
Yeah.
we can amalgamate it into like a
An acronym.
abbreviation. Yeah,
Yeah, we'll
acronym.
make
There
it,
we go.
make it an
There we
acronym.
go.
Leave it with us. Or if you think of a good acronym, leave it in the comments.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, we'll wrap it up there for today. Thank you so much for listening. It's been fun. We will catch you next time. If you don't already, you can follow us on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, and Twitter. Also Apple Podcast as of recently. Give us a like, give us a review, give us a rating, leave us a comment. We love to hear from you. And we will catch you next time.
Take it easy, guys.